Good afternoon. How was lunch? It was good. We're feeling awake. Thank you so much to the pretrial team. So the video that you just watched really was about our pretrial best practices project and some of our work over the course of last summer. In a couple minutes, we'll hear a little bit more from Anna Hall, who's the project lead for that specific work. But before then, I just want to set some context for our lunch programming together. First, I hope that this morning's sessions have you thinking about the criminal legal system in different ways. I hope that you are being fed and holding space for how to pivot from problem to possibility. Here at the MNJRC, we spend a lot of time thinking about possibility for change, and often change is synonymous with reform. We hear that all of the time. But here at the MNJRC, we really believe that what we actually need to be talking about and what we explicitly name is transformation. When we talk about reform, we're often speaking about making adjustments to systems that fundamentally remain the same. It's like repainting a house with crumbling foundation. The new color might look better, but the structural problems are still there. I think as a practitioner, I'm guilty of this too. Reform often gives us the comfort of taking action while leaving the deeper architecture untouched. But transformation requires us to dig deeper. It requires us to not just ask, how can we make the system better, which is a question that I have held, but it moves us to think about, why does this system exist in its current form? Who benefits by the system? Who is burdened by this system? It requires us to ask, how do I uphold these systems in my own practices? And how might I do things differently? Reform might give us better training for peace officers or more humane prisons, maybe. But transformation moves us to ask why we respond to social problems with punishment rather than prevention. It prompts us to envision a world where we invest in communities rather than incarceration, where we address the root causes of harm rather than simply responding to its symptoms. Transformation also requires us to think about what comes next instead of simply what we want to get rid of, which I think really aligns with what we heard earlier from Dr. Ginwright. As Daniel Surratt and Brian Stevenson remind us, transformation requires us to focus on building power with those who have been traumatized and creating systems that deliver actual justice for those most vulnerable to our current system inequities, rather than continue to focus on individual therapeutic interventions and support that often perpetuate state dependency. Transformation requires us to step beyond the comfortable boundaries of incremental change and to take risks. It demands that we listen to those who have been harmed by a current system, and not just as consultants to reform efforts, but as actual architects of new possibilities. Today, we want to spend some time with you in thinking about values and how, as we in the room, as practitioners, as I would call us and like to think of us all as such, to think about values, but in the context of transformation. In a minute, I'm going to ask some of the leads of our amazing teams to come up and introduce their work, take a couple minutes to talk about how transformative values show up in the work, and when we're done, I'm going to invite you to spend some time around the room. You'll see there are several large posters and some small tables. We've got some Post-its and some markers, and on those posters, parts of our projects are named. You'll get a sense of timeline, some of the work we're doing, but there'll also be a couple of values highlighted in the way that those project leads really think about how they embed those values in those projects, but then we also want to hear from you. So when we're done, I invite you to get up, move around, seek out a project you might be interested in, take a look at how we hold those values in the context of transformation, but then engage with us. Tell us, how do you think about those values in the context of your work? And then at about 12, it's already 12:30, about 1:30, I'm gonna call us all back here. We'll debrief for a couple minutes, and then we'll take a break before our next sessions. So for now, I'm gonna invite up our first project lead, Anna Hall.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna Hall. I am a criminal defense attorney at the Legal Rights Center in Minneapolis, and I have had the immense honor and privilege of leading the pretrial best practices team at the MNJRC. You saw in the video a piece of the work that we've done. I'll tell you a little bit more about how this project came about and what else we've done over the course of the last year. The Minnesota legislature asked the MNJRC to take a look at this issue. There was some interest among legislators to answer the question, what could be done better in Minnesota? Places across the country are making changes to their pretrial systems, also known as cash bail, and in Minnesota we have the opportunity to do that as well. So what that work has involved, including the community engagement sessions, but we've also done site visits to other states like Illinois and New Jersey, cities like New York City, to see how people are reimagining their pretrial systems and how that might be implemented here in Minnesota. We've also interviewed system actors, so judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, probation agents, all across the state of Minnesota to hear what's working and what's not working where you live. It's really important to us, and you saw probably in the map in that video, that we talk to people across the state. So we haven't just focused on the metro, although the vast majority of people who are charged with crimes are here in the metro, but the people who live in greater Minnesota are experiencing this pretrial system in many ways and in very different ways than those who are living in the more metro area. One of the things that has come out of our research is, to circle back to community engagement, that I've been both startled by and also really deeply believe in, is that every time we go into community and ask community, what should we do differently, what they tell us is what the research is also telling us. The best practices that we're seeing when we go to other communities, when we go to other states, the best practices that we're seeing in the literature, the best practices that we're hearing from system actors who know how to do this work, is what the community has already told us. MNJRC's work is powerful because the community has the answers, and MNJRC knows that and goes to the community for those answers. I'm really proud to help support elevating community voices on this issue. And the final result of our project will be a report to the legislature due in February. So it's crunch time and we're in writing mode. But I look forward to talking to you at the table, answering any questions you might have about the work we do. I appreciate you all being here.
All right, thanks so much, Anna. So next we're going to hear from Jenny. You're so cool, you only have a first name. And Jenny is the project lead for our evaluation for the Minneapolis BCR.
Is it okay if I talk right here? Oh, good. I'm nervous. I haven't been in front of this many people in a while. So maybe we'll invite a microdose of healing and everybody can take an inhale with me and an exhale. Thank you. So I am charged with leading a research evaluation project of the Behavioral Crisis Response Team in Minneapolis, run by Canopy Roots, who's representing at the table in the back. Wave your hand, yay. So actually first, raise your hand if you've heard of BCR or Behavioral Crisis Response. Okay, good. That's a good number, but not everybody. So as we've been watching our political situation unfold, and folks are struggling to maintain hope, which I heard a lot of on the podium up here today, I'd like to share what's been helping me keep hope thriving day to day, and it is really the gift of studying the behavioral crisis responders. For those who might be unfamiliar with behavioral crisis responders, they are the mental health teams that are the fourth arm of the City of Minneapolis emergency response system. So now it's police, fire, ambulance, and BCR for mental health emergency. But after the murder, I remember a day when that seemed unlikely to take place. Too soft of a response to send social workers to a 911 crisis, right? Do you remember a day where that seemed super unlikely? Yeah. Social workers responding to 911. People said it's not safe. People said police would be unsupportive because their own budget would be threatened. We have now interviewed multiple system actors, all first responders, BCRs, recipients of BCR, the mental health system. I can't find anybody who does not love this program. So if you know anybody, let me know, because I'd like to talk to somebody who thinks it's not a good idea. And after the murder of George Floyd, citizens had really said, enough, right? Enough. Give us another way. And this program emerged from that moment, building on a radical premise, which is, okay, in an emergency, we're going to approach people with compassion first. Not containment and control, but compassion and dignity. And what we learned is powerful. When you send mental health professionals instead of police to these calls, you create opportunities for what Dr. G was calling microdoses of healing rather than harm. The BCR teams approach each person, and we've done ride-alongs, so I can really testify to this. They approach each person as someone worthy of dignity and being treated on an equal playing field, regardless of current circumstances. Many of the situations that they respond to would make you or I uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable. We're talking unclothed people, people hurling insults, targeting the race or gender of the person responding, and the level of egolessness and compassion that the BCR responders are able to enact, I think is a transformative approach to emergency response. Yes, thank you. So what we learned by interviewing all these folks is that responding to people acting strangely, people that others are afraid of, people that are in the midst of post-traumatic stress reactions, a significant number of calls are mental health related, but they're also basic human needs related, right? Food, water, socks, a t-shirt, a warm hat. People struggling because of grief. A baby has died. People who have overdosed, a person hurling insults, as I said. The responders seem to take nothing personally and see potential in everyone, helping them find their strengths, their resources, without coming in to solve the problem for them. The program really points toward a future where crisis response heals rather than harms, and where compassion guides systems rather than control. It's a model that could transform how cities nationwide approach emergency response, but perhaps a model for transforming systems beyond emergency response. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Jenny. So if you're interested in hearing more about where we're at with that current evaluation and what we're learning, please stop by Jenny's table. And next we'll hear from MacKenzie, who is leading the evaluation for St. Paul's Office of Neighborhood Safety.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. My name is MacKenzie, like Kayla just said, and I'm the project manager for our MNJRC Project Peace team. We are conducting a developmental evaluation with the City of St. Paul's Office of Neighborhood Safety to explore their unfolding gun violence intervention and prevention approach, Project Peace. They're also represented in the back. Sharice, raise your hand. So stop by and definitely talk to her. Project Peace launched in 2022 in the City of St. Paul and is quickly expanding its capacity and scope. We, as I said, are taking a developmental approach, which allows our team to evaluate the impact of Project Peace while also providing feedback and support as a partner in their gun violence prevention work. We know that traditional responses to gun violence aren't working. New transformative approaches, like Project Peace, are wrapping around St. Paul families and getting to the root causes of violence and safety. Life coaches are building trusting relationships with the clients and families to do things like provide basic needs like housing, relocating families, food, IDs, and also working on longer-term goals like employment or education. To document and understand the approach of Project Peace and explore the impact, we're digging into questions related to relevant measures of gun violence, differences in uses of public space or perceptions of safety, collaborations between the St. Paul Project Peace team and their operational partners, like St. Paul Police or the schools, effective and meaningful engagement with the St. Paul community, and most importantly, the experience and impact of Project Peace for clients and their families. Like Anna was saying, really learning most from the people most impacted. I'll be in the back. Stop by my table to learn more about our transformative approach, Project Peace's transformative approach to gun violence prevention and intervention. We are at the very beginning stages of our evaluation project, so come talk to me about our data collection approaches and how we are developing our research questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, MacKenzie. So lastly, we'll hear from Aaron, who is the lead of our community outreach team.
How y'all doing? Thank you so much. While a new addition, outreach has proven essential to the work of the MNJRC, whether in community, having one-to-one conversations, learning from service providers, or strengthening partnerships. We work to empower community toward meaningfully reimagining a Minnesota criminal legal system that is fair, that is equitable, that is accountable, and that is restorative in its practices. We support JRC in 3 primary ways, the first being outreach program development. Our charge from leadership was to develop innovative ways to inform community of the JRC as a resource, distribute surveys, shout out to BCR, Canopy, as well as increasing participation at events. We expanded our understanding of outreach as a research tool by intentionally identifying community events, connecting with impacted audiences, and providing logistical support in promoting JRC efforts, while building consistency around calls, I know y'all got them, as well as text messages from Dante, Will, and I. We also instituted data practices to our ongoing field strategies by documenting locations, conversations, completed surveys, and collecting community commentary, as well as the information for us to be in partnership later on down the road. Secondly, authentic community engagement. Weekly, we identified locations and events where those most impacted by our research initiatives would naturally be. We tabled, canvassed businesses, and meaningfully engaged with folks about initiatives they could immediately impact at such events as Juneteenth, Pride, Open Streets, all 3 of them, Festival for Fathers, as well as National Night Out, amongst others. The plethora of experiences recorded not only humbled us, but encouraged our push for more inclusion of all experiences in this fight as bridge builders. And third, strengthening meaningful relationships with partnership organizations. We know we don't have all the answers, so we intentionally sought partnerships with organizations that we surely know are doing the work. This was requiring the creation of new relationships as well as fostering existing relationships with the MNJRC. These conversations centered around 3 primary things: describing who we are, learning who they are, and also sharing our possibilities of shared interests and how we're gonna build this power, y'all. We truly appreciate organizations such as Ujamaa Place, Power People Leadership Institute, Sabathani, C2I, Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Hoops, Agape, the Minneapolis Youth Congress, and many others for answering that call. Also, cannot forget Tone Up for allowing our participation in From the Block to the Ballot campaign, where we attended weekly phone banks encouraging those formerly disenfranchised to exercise their right to vote. Brian Stevenson once said, "The opposite of poverty is not wealth, but justice." Poverty isn't limited to funds, but can also mean a need for knowledge, connection, strategy, and influence. This summer and into the future, our mission remains to educate, equip, and bring people together, to advocate for meaningful, transformative changes to the criminal legal system. We ask that folks continue responding to our calls, no matter how often they come, our calls to action, building our powerful coalition base of leaders with organizations doing the work, and reimagining together possibilities toward justice. Thank you.
I don't know anybody who wouldn't answer a call from that man. You sound like you're running a campaign. I like it. Thanks so much, Aaron. So I think often when we come to these conferences, we get to spend time together and learn a lot about maybe a topic that we have some mutual interest in, but not enough time learning about one another. And so our hope is for the next 20 minutes or so, you can spend some time around the various tables. Also, please stop by our exhibitors that are also along the back hallway. We want to hear from you. And then my hope is that about 1:20 or maybe just after, I'll call us all back to hear a little bit about what you experienced. And then we'll get ready for the next breakout session. Do it.